Hi, and welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. My name is Irene Duford. I'm your host, and I'm here with Chris Medellin. And I am so excited. We are in his podcast studio today. Yeah. This is my first one live. I'm super excited. Cool. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to come into your studio.
No, I mean, thank you. I mean, you're giving me, a platform to be able to share my story. And, it's always been cool to be in the same room as you. So I'm stoked about it. Thank you.
I'm super excited because you have so much to share with loan officers.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us what you do and how long you've been there.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a regional vice president here at Loan Depot. I've been with this company for about 10 years. I got in the mortgage industry in like 2001 timeframe. So I've been in this for, I think this is year 20, close to 25, at this point. So I've been doing this for a long time. My role is I support about 80 loan officers in my market. So my market is in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, and Hawaii. So I have loan officers and leaders within those markets. And my job is really to support them, make sure that their loans are going through, make sure that they're getting what they need to scale their business. And we're coaching, we're mentoring, we're creating leaders. And, and a small piece of my role that I think a lot of people think I do the most piece of it, but it's actually a small piece of what I do, is I'm always looking to connect with loan officers to help them build their business. And sometimes that means they come to me or they come into our community where we, do our own mastermind and help from that perspective, help mentor, coach. All that encompassed everything that I do right now.
That's great.
And I have a podcast, by the way.
Yeah, your podcast, the Breakthrough Podcast. Tell us about that.
So, I started this podcast during COVID, and the idea was it was like a hack to get content. It was like, well, if I could just interview people and I can just, chop that up, I'll have more content. And then it evolved. It was like the Chris Medellin show, and then it evolved into Breakthrough because I really had this interest in understanding where people were right before they broke through the next level. So I call it this 211 to 212 degrees. So at 212 degrees, water boils. But at 211, it doesn't boil. It's like just kind of starting to get there. And to me, people go through that right before they hit a breakthrough. So it's not about the flex of the breakthrough, but more of, I was stuck, I was pissed off. There's usually a breakdown before the breakthrough, and that's the story I want to hear, because most likely there's somebody in that same space that needs help or that needs to know that they're not the only one. And so I wanted to just inspire. And so usually that's what we get. If I do a podcast, even if I get one DM that resonated, it's thank God. It really, that was the goal. So it's really just to impact one person each episode. And we've been really lucky to get, the views and the amount of reach that we've had.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. I listen to every episode.
Thank you.
It's really good. That's why
awesome.
I wanted to have you on because,
Thank you.
When I first started podcasting, my idea was to have something like that, an inspirational, motivational, something like what you have. But I figured I'm going to just mix it up a little bit because my purpose is to help loan officers. And not only do they need to be helped with hiring and training and everything else, but the mindset and the breakthrough and the habits, all of that makes a difference. Because without it, you don't have a business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think what you do, it's such a niche. Is it niche or niche? But whatever that is, it's so it's so specific. But but I think it's needed in our industry. And so when I think about breakthrough, right now there are loan officers that are about to break through. It could be one weekend that rates change and all of a sudden we go on a ride, and those people are going to need you and what you do. And so to be able to help them in that breakthrough is really big. And there's not, I think you're the only one in the industry that does what you do and promotes it the way that you do. And so my interest on also coming onto your show is, the people who need you are also people that I want to be in rooms with, right? Those are the people that I want to be able to help and mentor and, hopefully give them a better platform. But I just think it's awesome what you do. And I want my folks that follow me to also use you because, we're in the same mastermind. You're doing something that I haven't seen people do. And as I coach loan officers, I always go through don't just hire somebody because they're available. Hire somebody that you really need that has the skill sets. So I usually push back, like, don't even hire anybody or talk to me about a hire until you've written out all the things that you want them to do, and then go look for that person. But don't say like, oh, my cousin Johnny is available, so I'm going to hire him. You know, that's not how it should be. But then once they're hired, they have to come to you. I thought that was really cool what you're doing.
Yeah, so hiring is really important. They have to hire the right person, and the right person for one loan officer is not the same right person for another loan officer. It depends on what they're looking for, the style they have, the way they want their people to communicate, what's important to them. Some of them I know have said that they feel like some people are too slow, their rhythm is too slow, they want them a little faster, that type of thing. So that's what I'm starting to do now is
I love that.
I have a loan officer or a loan partner hiring checklist, and it goes everything to find.
So crazy.
Yeah, to find the right person.
I mean, that's about to blow up because I think we're in a mode right now where so many people have left the industry, and now the people that are in the industry are going to start getting more market share. And as people grow their market share, there is going to be a rate drop. And when that rate drops, there's not going to be enough people in the industry to handle the volume, and they're going to need help.
Yes.
And the last thing you want to do is stop what you're doing and train somebody. And so to be able to have somebody like you that could do it on the back end and set the right expectations up front that's catered to the person they support, that's what the industry needs.
Thanks. I think it's a real need in the industry. So I appreciate
really
you
is.
saying that. Yeah. So tell us how you got started in the mortgage industry and what attracted you to it, or how did it happen?
Well, so I used to work in credit cards. So I worked in marketing for a credit card bank, and it was, I think at the time it was the largest credit card in the country. They ended up getting bought out by Chase, but like so I was working in marketing, and what I did there was, when you call to get your balance or whatever, it's usually that's a cost that's an expense. And so they're trying to figure out a way to make that expense profitable. So then they started introducing products. So you would call your credit card, they give you your balance, say, oh, by the way, you qualify for this product, right? So I was the one teaching people how to sell that product that were on the phones, right? So I kind of knew how to sell. I used to go door to door selling cable. That's how I got, started in sales. And one of the projects that I had was kind of determining which sites to close. And it turned out it was like we were going to close the site that I was in. So I was on the market, and somebody had called me, and they offered me a job in mortgage, and it was like a really big job. It was like a job bigger than me, and I was like, I don't think I'm your guy. I didn't really understand a mortgage. I didn't own I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't own a home, So I was like, talk to my old boss, right? Because we were both on the market at this time, and so he got the job, and I mean this job changed his life. He went from I don't know. I just know that he was making a lot of money, more money than I even understood, right? So I ended up getting another job doing something else, and then I was really unhappy because it wasn't necessarily a sales job, and so I called him, and I was like, I will take anything you have. And he said, well, I need somebody to cross-train the loan officers that are on the phone to selling home equities because there's all this equity, and we're not tapping into it. So I was like, I don't know what that means. But yeah, I mean, I literally remember I took the job. I lived in Austin at the time. He was like, you can come to Columbus or you can come to Tampa. I was like, I'll go to Tampa because that sounds warm. I've never been to Tampa in my life. So I took the job, and it was like a really quick conversation, and they relocated me. And then when I got there, I didn't understand what equity was. So he like literally drew a house on a whiteboard and walked me through like how equity worked and how you can cross-sell it. And so I studied it for about 2 weeks, and then I just started training everybody. And that year, we sold $1 billion of home equities. Like it was like insane how quickly it took off. But I realized that all I had to do was understand it. All I had to do was train it in a way that people understood it. I did a bunch of happy hours, did a lot of contests, and just really connected with the LOs. And then it kind of took off. So I was already cross-training people how to sell credit card products, so it was a really good fit. It was just a different product. And then eventually things kind of shifted in the company, and I ended up taking over. Like I moved out to Arizona to build a call center for first mortgage people because it was kind of like the next thing to do, the next iteration of my career. And so I was in call centers for Chase building teams, and I would literally go out to like cell phone stores and Best Buys and Circuit Cities to recruit talent to come in and work. And so I was already a recruiter, doing that and building call centers. And then the market shifted. And when the market shifted, I was out of a job again because I got laid off. And so I ended up partnering with some people. We created a brokerage, and I got into retail at that point, but through like a broker in Arizona. And that sucked because, at the time it was like 2010. It was like the hardest time in the industry to be a broker. I think it's shifted now. I mean, obviously, people who are listening to this are probably brokers, and they're like, oh, that, but at the time it sucked. And it sucked because regulators didn't want brokers around. They had a really bad name.
I remember.
And so I went to retail, and since I've been in retail, it's been really good for me and my family. It's like I hit my stride again, and now I work at Loan Depot. I've been here for 10 years, and I build teams and I help people grow their business. That's essentially what I do.
And I can tell you really love it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like. It's a weird thing, but I don't feel like I'm working. Like, I mean, there's things that I hate about being in the role that I'm in. That I'm sure everybody has, something they don't like doing.
Yes.
But the fact that I can come to work, we're sitting in my office. We're in a studio right now that I can do creative stuff in. And when we're done, I'm going to just go right there and do work, right? And so, like, I'm really fortunate that I have the opportunities that I do, but I love connecting with people. And so it gives me the chance all day, like, when you walked in, I was literally on a call with somebody that we're about to hire. And that's the fun part, is that we're about to change somebody's life. I'm going to write an offer. We're going to change her life, and she's going to come in and, really make a difference for us, and we're going to make a difference for her. And that's what it's about. I love that piece.
It is. And you're really good with connecting people. I've seen you at the masterminds, connecting with people. The first time I saw you, I was in line at Resorts World last year for the Forward Mastermind, and you saw Chris Do. He was checking in. And you probably don't even know this story, but you saw Chris Do, and you said you shook his hand and everything. And then I told you afterwards, I said, hi, I introduced myself to you, and you said, yeah, and you told me about your long hair, that you had just cut it or something recently. And I love the picture that you shared yesterday. We were on a call with Neil, and you did a mastermind call with him, and he showed the picture on there, and I love that. But what made you cut your hair? Because it was really long, and I just think it's cool.
Yeah, so maybe we'll send it to you. So if you do this on YouTube, you could show it. But I ended up, I'd always wanted long hair. COVID happened. I kind of started growing it during COVID. And then it became a thing where it was like, well, that's your brand, and you can't cut your hair because of your brand. And, and so at that point, I was like kind of stuck in it. And even like I would go to the guy who cuts my hair. I remember I would go over there. I was like, all right, cut it. And he's like, no, we're not cutting it. It's beautiful hair. We can't cut it. So I eventually just I don't know. I just decided it was time. I felt like if I'm going to be taken seriously when I sit down with somebody who funds, $100 million a year, they want to meet with somebody who looks like they have their act together, and not some kid that has, long hair and is not taking things seriously. And I took things very seriously, but at that point I just felt like it was time for me, at least. I'm not telling anybody else who has long hair to cut it. It was the right thing for me to do at the time.
So I never knew you with long hair like that. Yeah. It was after that I met you.
Yeah, we met after. Yeah, and because I had what's funny about that is I had gone to Chris Do, and I had asked him the question about whether if I should cut it or not, but also I wanted to approach him in a different way than anybody else would, so that when I asked him to be on my podcast, he would say yes. That was probably really the intention on that.
Oh, that's funny. And it worked.
Yeah, I got him on, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have changed some of your habits. I always like to talk about habits on this podcast, because loan officers have to have great habits. If they're really good producers, they need to have great habits. And so you've changed habits. What's your main habit right now that gets you up in the morning? You start your day that way. I know what it is, but share it with everybody.
Yeah. Well, let me say this too. Like, I think success and things that like I have been able to accomplish in my life came from, I had these two friends that I would say were rich. Mm-hmm. And I came up very like with very little resources, right? I think there was a couple of times we were on food stamps, and that's a whole different story. But like I remember being, I just kind of ran into these two guys, and they were rich. They were like, they had, and I remember just watching and observing how their parents lived their lives and where they would go on vacations. And like, I was trying to understand what the other side of the world lived like. And because these two individuals like kind of took me into their families and I got to see it, I didn't want to go back to that other side. I was like, I have to figure this out, right? And so habits, like my dad worked his ass off. He sold tires, and he would be on his feet from like 7 a.m. and he would leave there probably 7 p.m. And then when he came home, he was just done. He was done with people. He was done. So he would just want to watch TV. And so I didn't really have a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And I found myself in that same routine, like, because that's what I lived with, right? Like, I didn't get to go home to those other families and see how their parents lived. I just saw how my dad lived, and I just mimicked that, right? Uh-huh. So at some point I was like, I have to break the cycle if I want to live longer, if I want to be a better father to my kids and those sort of things. So I started working out in the morning. Like, first off, like, I'm not a morning person, but like I have to get up at 5, and then I would like, I'll work out, I'll read, I'll meditate sometimes, kind of look at my emails, kind of get my act together. And around 6:30, I'll go out and I'll work out. And I try to do that every single day. Like, unless I'm traveling, like I'm doing 75 hard now, so I don't have a choice. But like, even when I'm not on 75 hard, I'm at least working out every day, unless like my flight's at like 6 a.m. and I can't, mm-hmm. and I'm going to be in meetings all day. That's the only times I won't. But for the most part, I'll work out every day. But I try to do the hardest thing in the morning, and to me, that's working out. And then the rest of the day is pretty simple after that. Like, if I can do that, then I'm in a good place.
Did you ever work out in the evening time? Did you ever
try
to do
like,
that?
That was like always. In fact, like I was doing it before 75 hard. I would start doing that because I would just get in a funk. But that's why I went into 75 hard, because I was like, I'm in a funk right now with my workouts. Uh-huh. And I went to, my family and I went on vacation. I was just like not happy with how I felt. And I was like, all right, when we get back tomorrow, I'm starting 75 hard. And that really, like, when you put in that discipline, like, I feel better, I have more energy, there's things that I have to get done. And so like, I feel good about myself at that point. And so I try to do it at least once a year now.
Oh, that's great.
And that way I can, like, if I get in a funk, I can usually pull out of it.
Mm-hmm. The part that's hard for me with just being transparent with exercise is my morning hours, like I get up early, but I'm working, my creativity is happening at that time. Mm-hmm. So if I go work out, then I get distracted, and then my creativity is lost. So I have had the hardest time trying to figure out what is the best time for me to work out. Because it is in the morning, but if I do that, then I miss out on the other. And so I've been trying to figure out. Do you like working out? I enjoy it once I get doing it.
I hate working out. Yeah. I hate it. And so I have to do it first thing.
To get it out of the way.
Because if I don't, then I'll have every excuse after work not to do it. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it's if I don't get it done, like that to me goes ahead of my creativity, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I have to get that first. Yeah. And then I can do anything else. So my whole day revolves around that.
See, you're helping me here with that, because I don't have that habit yet.
Yeah.
And I keep using that as an excuse, and then I'll say, I'll do it in the afternoon, and it doesn't get done.
It won't get done. I mean, like that, like, so, because I mean, you're tired. You have good intentions in the morning. Like, I'll do it at night. So like, I have hacks like the night before. So I have two things right now. So I'm working out in the morning for 45 minutes in my garage. Mm-hmm. And then I walk at night at 7:15. I'll do a 45-minute walk. And so the night before, I put out my clothes for the morning so that I can they're already ready. Like my shoes are there. So when I get up and I walk to my closet, they're already laid out for me. And then once I do that, when I'm getting ready for work, I put out my walking stuff because I know I'm going to have to do another workout at night. So when I get home from work and I'm changing, my only option is to change into that. And once I change into the clothes, now it's go, so there's no backing out at that point. So again, my day has to revolve around those two things, and everything else after that comes easy because I have the energy to do it. Like I'm ready to go, you know what I mean, at that point.
Do you have a time where you feel you're more creative than another time?
I think I'm not clinically diagnosed, but I think I have some form of ADD. So if I don't do my computer work in the morning or creativity stuff, like, I'm creating content, so I'll have an idea and I want to get my script down right. It has to be done in the morning. But anything after 12, I cannot type anymore. Like I don't want to be on my computer. Everything is talking at that point and connecting. So it has to be like, I won't let anybody schedule any meetings before 10. And though that 2-hour block from 8 to 10 is my time that I'm going to be on the computer.
I like that.
And then I'll take meetings after that, but I'm not doing any computer work after 12. I'll answer emails like one-line responses and stuff like that, but any deep work I have to do or deep thinking work has to be done between 8 and 10.
I love that you know yourself that well. I'm sure it took a while to get to that rhythm down.
Yeah, I tested different things. I did all my one-on-ones. Alex Hermosi says you start them from 5 o'clock and work backwards. And I couldn't do it because in my industry, the witching hour, if you will, is from 3 to 5. So if something goes wrong in my day, like an underwriter decides they're going to say no to a deal, that's going to happen between 3 and 5. And so usually that's when my busiest, when I'm putting out fires or I'm helping a loan officer. So I need to keep that kind of time open too. So I try to get everything in between, like one-on-one or corporate meetings between 10 and 3. And then I try to leave the rest open for being available and computer work.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's important to share successful people, their habits, what they are.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. What works for some may not work for another.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I'm taking away from this podcast today is that I need to stop making the excuse that I'm going to get it done later because it won't happen.
Oh yeah, like the one thing that I don't want to do today, I have to do first.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the one thing I have to do. So, and that goes for tough conversations. Like I had mentioned, there's things I hate about my job, and the one thing I hate is, by the time it hits my desk, it's because everybody else said no, right? And so I either have to say no or make it work, and I'm delivering bad news a lot of times because I have smart people in my organization, and so if they've said no, I'm dealing with the most complex of issues that nobody else can handle. And so I got to figure it out, either how to get a yes or how to get a no. And so that's the one thing I hate is I'm saying no a lot, at times. Because loan officers have really great marketing ideas that are like borderline illegal. And so you're like, no, you can't do that. We cannot do that. We're a highly regulated industry. So that's the one thing I don't like. But I try to get those conversations out of the way early.
So one of the things that I love about what you do is your personal branding. You're like an example to me because I've done a lot of business. I train people. I've coached people for 13 and a half years, and I was a branch manager and, the whole thing in the mortgage business. But what I'm missing is personal branding because back in the day when video was new in 2010, 2008, 9, I did video then, but it was a totally different type of video. And it was not so much for social media. It was you did a local video and emailed it out, that type of thing. And so I was used to being on camera and video, but this is completely different. And I put myself in this mastermind on purpose so that I could get uncomfortable and be in a room of people that are way further down the road than I am at that thing. It doesn't mean that we're not equals in other areas, but in the personal branding, it's a big deal.
It is.
So you have been one of the people that I've been watching all along, even though you don't know. And I've been watching you, and I'm just so impressed with your branding. So tell me how you got started with that and what you did to change so that you were personal branding, doing content all day.
Yeah, well, there was a when COVID happened, you know, we were all kind of, we all jumped online, right, to kind of see what everybody was doing. And that's actually how me and Neil met, because there was very few people in our industry that were really doing video well, right? So the few people that were kind of in there were like, we all kind of were talking, we were hanging out, we were talking about like new things that were coming up. And and so like, I didn't really know it was personal branding, right? But then it was probably like a video or something. It resonated with me, but it was like your LinkedIn or your social profile is your resume. And so I decided, I was like, okay, whatever my role is at the time, I think I was an area manager. And I was like, well, whatever my role is, I'm going to produce the most content than anyone in the role that I'm in the country. I'm going to produce more, and I'm going to get my name out so that if ever something happens, that people know who I am, right? And there's a reason for that. So back in like 2008 time frame, somewhere around then, I worked at Wells Fargo. No, it was 2013. I worked at Wells Fargo. I was a retail guy, and we were like number 2 in the country. My team was like number 2 in the country. And we had just funded like $1 billion. So we were like crushing it. And I was on top of the world. We were like number 2 in the company, and I got fired. I got fired because they were consolidating, and I was like the youngest guy and the lowest man on the totem pole when it came to how long I'd been in the industry, like how long I'd been in Wells. There was like some weird algorithm that they would use to determine who was going to get cut. And it wasn't numbers. It was never going to be your production. Mm-hmm. And I just funded $1 billion, right? So I was like, I thought I was hot shit. And then, you know, all of a sudden, and you can bleep that out, but like, I thought I was like, you know, I'll get picked up really fast. And no one called me. No one knew who I was, because like, you work for a company like Wells, you're not on social media. You know, back then, if you had a Facebook, you only kept it for your friends and family. You didn't, use it. So I realized that no one knew who I was, and no one cared. No one cared. So instead of recruiters calling me, I was calling recruiters. I remember being on LinkedIn and like, okay, this person works at this company, and let me just kind of work up the chain until I get to that person. Let me email that person and try to get in, right? So I ended up being okay from a work perspective, but I realized no one knew who I was. So I was like, when that resonated about your social media being your resume, I was like, wait, I have an opportunity right now that if I can build my brand and there's value to it, then 2 things will happen. One, I'll never be in a place where people don't know who I am. And so if I ever need a job, I can pick up the phone and people know it's Chris that's calling, right? So that was one. Number 2, no one in my market was doing it. So at the time, my market was, I had Arizona and Las Vegas, or Phoenix and Las Vegas. And so I would call people and they would be like, hey, I saw that video you did. So they would take my call, and then because I cold call all the time. So I'll cold call today. Mm-hmm. And when I call, I want them to say, oh, I know that, I saw that video. And then they would take my call, and then they take the meeting, and then perhaps they might work with me because they got to know me, like me, and trust me. Mm-hmm. So those are the reasons why I was like, okay, I have to continue to do this. And, look, I don't have a ton of followers like on Instagram. I think I have like 3,000. And I'd like it to be at 10, mainly because for one reason and one reason only, I want people to trust that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But I won't buy them because I don't think that that's a genuine thing to do. So, but I want people to know, to get the message. So if anything, that's the area of my brand that I want to continue to grow, and that people believe who I am when they pull it up. And if I'm teaching social media or I'm teaching branding, they're like, okay, this guy's legit. Mm-hmm. But I think at the end of the day, where it became important to me was, if I want to help more people and I want to serve more people in my community, then I have to put myself out there so that they know who I am. And really, like, I'm not doing thought leader stuff. I don't ever talk about the market. I don't ever talk about the rates. I don't ever talk about my competition. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about how we can help loan officers and leaders grow. That's it. That's what that's my brand. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, you do a great job of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I've been following you and watching and seeing, there's nothing like getting in a room of people that are they're down the river from you.
Absolutely. I mean, so many things with the Forward Mastermind that helped me. And, I think one was like, I met people like Thomas Bepko, who was sober. I met, Kaplan, who inspired me in a lot of ways. Like, I'm looking at the guy who is probably one of the country's top producers and leaders, and is like we're in the mastermind. He's taking notes, and he's like a student to the game. And sometimes, I'm not a student of the game, or I'm just not like in the mindset to learn the way that I watch. So I get inspired by that, and I want to be surrounded by that. So, I think my brand has grown, and respect for what I'm doing has grown by just showing up in ways in rooms that people, that good people are in. Mm-hmm. And so like for me, I was telling my wife this, like one day I was like, I don't know if I should say this, but I don't know, I'll say it. Like we got a vacation with people who are 10 steps ahead of us. You know what I mean? Like we have to be in rooms with people that are 10 steps. If we want to grow our business, if we want to grow as individuals, we can't always be the ones that are like, we can't always be the ones that are ahead of everybody. We have to be in rooms of people that we're chasing or chasing the lifestyle. And so that's what I think loan officers need to do. They need to be in rooms, and people in any industry need to be in rooms with people that are 10 steps ahead of them, like you said. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've tried to do. I've tried my best to do that, and it's served me relatively well. There's things that I want to accomplish that I haven't accomplished, and I'm getting there. Yeah.
Well, you've accomplished something really amazing, and that's getting sober.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we could talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And that's it hits close to my heart, mm-hmm. because the reason why I went back to Forward after the first time, I've been going, this will be my 4th year at Forward, but I joined the mastermind last year. But the first time I heard Ed Milet telling his story about his father and about how he changed his life, mm-hmm. and I am not kidding, during that time, mm-hmm. When he was done, it was lunch. I don't know if you remember that, if you were there, but when he was done, I was crying so much that I was like, I couldn't stop. And I couldn't figure out why are you doing this, Irene? But he hit some spots in my life growing up that really helped me see how important, and I could feel, my dad passed away, but I could feel my dad there just saying to me, you're in the right place, Irene. This is what you needed to hear so that you could decide what you want to do with your life. And that was 4 years ago. It took me a little while.
Yeah.
But so in my family, there's a lot of alcoholism. I didn't drink on purpose because I saw what it did in our family. And so I've never, even in high school, I didn't go to parties and drink and stuff like that. I'll go to them, but I'm not going to drink. And I didn't realize what a decision that was when I was young, why I was making that decision until I became an adult and looked back and went, so that's why you didn't do it. But that's the reason. So this is the first time I'm going to say this publicly, but my dad was a closet alcoholic when I was growing up. He was the best dad in the world. He has taught me everything I know. He's the voice in my head that tells me I can succeed. He's everything good, but at the same time, I dealt with a closet alcoholic. And I've been dealing with a lot of going back recently, and I tell the story about my dad, what a great inspiration he was to me. He came from Mexico City when he was 18 years old. He had to learn English. He started as a dishwasher and became a chef. And all of this was done throughout my life. When I was a senior in high school, my mom was a smoker and he was a drinker. And really, people didn't know that he was an alcoholic. It was kind of hidden, except we could see it at home. Didn't go to bars, that type of thing. But anyway, it affected us. It affected me. I became an enabler because of that. And I wanted to keep the peace in the house. And so I was the one my mom would turn to settle him down. He never got mean or anything like that. It was very, he just got kind of just too, like, baboso is the word I think of in Spanish. Just kind of dumb. Yeah. You know, just, it was not a good situation. But so my mom would turn to me for that. And I realize now as an adult, as I'm getting older, all the things I'm looking back and realizing where it all came from. But when I heard Ed Milet tell the story, when I was a senior in high school, my mom and dad sat me down. I was the only one at home. I'm the baby of 14 kids.
Okay, wow.
And he married my mom. She was a single mom, had 13 kids, 5 at home, and then they had me, and he raised 6 of them.
He sat me down senior year and said, I've decided to stop drinking. And my mom said, and I've decided to start smoking. We stopped smoking. Yeah. We made a pact. And so they both did it. And my dad was sick for like a week. But after that, he never took a drop again. Totally changed really his life. Yeah, totally changed my life.
Yeah.
I love all of the good. My kids never saw my dad drink. They were never exposed to any of that. But I'm telling the story because I think it's important for people to know that anybody can change. It's never too late to change. So tell us your story about how you decided to get sober.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of like, probably like too many to count, but so many days that I would wake up hungover, and it would be like, okay, that's the last time I'm going to do this. And then, Wednesday would come and I had a rough day, and I was like, all right, I'm going to have a drink. And then, we had a really good month, and so you'd go have a drink. Or, oh, that was a hard conversation, I'm going to go have a drink. And so I started to realize, well, there was a few like really big moments that I noticed, it was not like a rock bottom moment, like for me, luckily. But one time, there were some days, like I think I remember one day we were having some drinks, 4th of July, with some friends, and they just kept bringing them out. And like, I was like trying to keep up, and it was like a lot of tequila, and I remember my son kind of in the corner of my eye, I can see him like kind of mimicking how we were talking, but he was like kind of pretending he was drunk, and I was like, like he thinks this is cool, So I was like, all right, well, that kind of bothered me, but it wasn't enough for me to quit. And then it was like an event. It was like a NAREP event that I was at in Washington. I had this really amazing like fine dining meal with the woman who had helped me build my brand, like who kind of sat me down and like helped me, architect what my brand was going to be, Kat. And we had drinks, and like I had like we had like 4 champagnes and like a Manhattan or 2 Manhattans. Her husband was like the chef, or not her boyfriend, I don't know what it was. Her significant other was like the chef, the head chef at the restaurant that we'd gone to in Washington. It was a really swanky place. So he was like bringing out the best stuff, right? So I was fine that night. I went home and everything was great. I wasn't hungover the next day. I went to the hotel, everything was great. And the next day I flew home and I had a drink with my wife at like, it was I want to say like I don't know. It was a significant anniversary. It was the first place we had our first date at. And I had one drink of a Manhattan because I remembered the Manhattan from the night before, and I was like, I want another one because I hadn't had a Manhattan in years. But it was like a Manhattan martini, so it was like really strong. I drank one and I was literally like slurring after that, and she was like so annoyed with me, like, you can't keep your your shit together at our like anniversary dinner or something. And I just was like, all right, I'm gonna just stop. And I tried, and I remember having excuses. And then I was interviewing Cap. It was like September or August. I was already in one of these spurts where I'm not going to drink anymore, or I was trying not to. And it had been like a week, and I was interviewing Cap, and Cap was like, I just stopped. I stopped doing everything. I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking. And, he was really honest about it. He had gone to like this immersive treatment here in Arizona, and somebody he had was a therapist I had done therapy with. So I was like, well, it's so weird. Like, of all people, Cap, who's in my mastermind, went to the same lady that I had done therapy with, and he got like I don't know if he's still clean or whatever, but like at that time he was like, yeah, I just quit everything. And I was like, well, if he could do it, why can't I? And so I was like, I just decided that day I wasn't going to drink anymore. And I didn't really say anything about it to anybody. I just was like a promise to myself. And then we went to the mastermind, and Chris Doe was talking, and I got partnered with Trevor to talk about something that you're like really ashamed of. And it was that, because, while I didn't think I hit rock bottom, there were a lot of embarrassing moments for my wife that like I'd go to dinners with her, and like if I didn't really want to be at the dinner, I would just drink in the corner and go to sleep, you know, like I would just like, and it really wasn't in the corner. It was like in front of everybody. So I was just like, I just wasn't real, like I wasn't proud of who I had become. And it wasn't helping my career, you know, it wasn't like really, and as far as I know, it wasn't necessarily hurting it, but it wasn't helping it. It wasn't helping my performance in my career. Being hungover doesn't help your performance at anything, right? No. So I was like, it's not fair to my kids. And if I could teach my kids that, you know, that drinking exists, but also not drinking exists, then maybe that's a standard that I can change. And you know, but what I realized in that moment, and sorry to drag this on, but like what I realized when I stopped is that I had never learned how to cope with any sort of emotion.
That's it.
And so, you know, I had been drinking hard. It's funny you said baboso, and I have not heard that in so long.
In a long time.
And we used to call my friend Bob. His name was Anthony, but we called him Bob for short for baboso. But anyway, so I grew up with these guys that were big drinkers, and my brothers were big drinkers, and I think I started at like 10. And then like, I think I drank like every day or at least every weekend from 16 till I stopped. And so like, I never coped. I never learned how to cope. I never had a dinner with my wife I didn't have like a drink, you know, I had never really had any sort of celebration. All my kids' first birthdays, I have a drink in my hand, you know? So at some point I was like, it's just something has to change. And could I, it was a part of my brand also. Yes. I was the party guy. I was the guy that was like, you know, so it was like, how do I change that brand? It was like cutting my hair. I was like, how do I not be that guy anymore? And so, but I just had to decide like, F it, you know, that doesn't define me. And then I had to realize, you know, is sobriety a part of my brand? I don't know. But like eventually I just had to decide for me that I was going to not do it and learn how to cope. And that took me like a year and a half to learn how to cope with myself and accept me, who I am as a person, and forgive myself for anything I was ashamed of. And then at that point I can kind of start working on my outside relationships, you know, but I had to kind of go internal first. And kind of that's where I'm at. I think it'll be 2 years in a couple of months here, it'll be 2 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And honestly, it's not even like a thing anymore. Like I'm not drinking. That's it. Like I'm not like, I'll think about it every now and then, but it's never like I'm ever on the verge of worrying about it. It's just, it's a decision I made and I won't do it again. So it definitely changed my life. In so many ways.
You've changed your children's lives, your wife's lives, your children's lives, their children's lives. Yeah. They're going to be affected by the decision that you made in a good way.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and we all have habits. And that, to me, that's a habit. That's not who you are. Drinking is a habit.
That was who I was. I mean, man, that was my best friend. You know, like, yeah, it was really a part of it was like embedded in my DNA of, you know, like, so my kids would go to bed around 8. And then that was like party time, you know, like I'd open up a bottle of wine. This is like almost every night, you know? And again, like, it wasn't like it was impacting my work or anything like that. It was just like, why do I need to cope? Why is this like this thing that I need to cope? And so I had to get it out. And so many opportunities have opened up because of it.
And I think that's what it is. It's a coping mechanism. And I know it was for my dad. And I just felt like I needed to share that because that's something I've never publicly shared.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's big.
It was because I don't want to tarnish his memory. I don't want to embarrass him in any way someday, you know, when I have to face him again. But I just feel like so many people need to know the story so that they know that you can have good, a lot of good that you're doing, as well as have a habit that may not be serving you.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
With us.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
And so I think I don't want to end it there, but at the same time, I think it's important for people to know that we can change whatever we want to change in our lives.
Yeah.
And get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And be okay with that, with getting uncomfortable. And we all have habits. For me, it's food. I have to be careful of that and exercise, lack of exercise. So it's different for everybody, but I think it's important to know that
100%.
we can absolutely change. And you're a great example of that. You've built your brand, you're doing great content, you're helping a lot of people all over the country.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Including Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so
Hawaii is a big market for us, and it's fun. It's fun to be able to support. Like I said, I think I have the coolest job ever, where I get to go out and make an impact, and and it affords me the ability to do a lot of self-development, and I hadn't really thought this through, but I think I ask myself sometimes, like, had I not been in rooms where people can show me that it's possible to do it, would I have done it? And the good news is that I was able to get in rooms, so, and it put me here with you. So I think that that's awesome as well.
Me too. So thank you for being here today and for
Absolutely.
being on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your example. So thank you for being here with us today. And if you found value in this podcast, which I know you offered great value, I would really appreciate it if you would leave us a review if you can, and just let people know about the podcast. And we just appreciate you being here with us.